Good morning, Nagham. How are you?
Good morning, Colleen. I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I am doing good. I'm so excited to have you with us today.
The excitement is all mine. I am so pumped up this morning to talk about resilience.
Yes, and what a thing to talk about on a Monday morning. It's actually going to be the power thing that's going to get us through our week, I think.
That Monday morning, oh gosh, I people have history with this. And yes, I agree. I think this is the thing to talk about Monday morning.
It is. It is. And I think that once we set our resilience for the week, and I don't need it on Monday morning, I don't need to be resilient Monday morning. I love Monday mornings. But if I can get that set in stone now, then I'm prepared for the rest of the week.
Yeah. You know, um, the I think it's good to get started on Monday morning, but it's also good to continue every single day of the week, including your weekends, because it's not a thing that you do once and you kind of, oh, let me see how that's gonna help me. It's not like a pill you take, right? It's a continuous work in progress. And I loved your energy on a Monday morning, and you said that you love it. That's
Well,
infectious.
Well, I think I love it because I get the privilege of staying home and working from home. My hustle's a little bit different. I get up earlier and I'm excited to get up and I can get up and start my day and do my meditation and my grounding and my water intake and all of those things and then just come right up the hallway into my office. I don't have to get out and drive. I don't have to worry if I'm going to make it somewhere at a certain time. I love
Yeah,
that.
absolutely makes a difference. And I love that. I do love that. Yeah.
Yes. So talk to me about DISC.
Ooh, yes.
Or wait, maybe you should introduce yourself first.
Sure.
I'll let you do
Yes,
that
let's
first.
do that.
I'm so
Let's do
excited
that.
to learn about disc. I just can't wait. So,
I know, and you know what? When you said this guy, I lit up and I was about to start talking, but you're absolutely right. I should introduce myself.
yeah,
I'm Nagham Alsamari, and I am a professional speaker, resilience coach, and disc consultant, and I'm the owner and founder of Imkan Leadership Development. And Imkan in Arabic means possibility. And I started Imkan to help others find the possibilities in their lives. We go through so much in our life, and we have a lot of challenges, and we go through adversity. And what we do, unfortunately, as human beings, and this is how our brains are trained, we focus on the threat, the danger, the fear, the challenge, and we forget all the possibilities that are embedded within these challenges and the lessons that we can actually learn. And this is where resilience comes in. When we train our resilience muscle, we start seeing the lessons. And I do this by helping people first build their self-awareness through DISC. And that's where DISC comes in.
I love that. So we're going to switch us from fight or flight into resilience, where we're going to be
Exactly.
looking for possibilities.
Exactly.
Great. And what a perfect time in life for that. I feel like my audience is midlife women, and we have gone through so many things. And so maybe we're a little more embedded in that fight or flight if we haven't learned these things, right? And I think also that shifts the shame of the game, if you will.
Yeah.
So many times, especially if you've made it to midlife, we have things we've gone through that are outside of our control but are embarrassing or not a good representation of us, or something that we want to push to the side and just move on and not acknowledge. And
Yeah.
what a more healthy aspect to look at it and learn and go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And then during, as we're going through whatever it is we're going through, it's really hard to focus on the bright side of things, right?
It
It's
is.
hard to focus on what is the light at the end of the tunnel, because we're seeing is the darkness at that point in time. But the possibility in all of this is that if we can actually train our brains to look for the light at the end of the tunnel, to look for the patterns, because everything is about patterns in life. I mean, think about it this way. And you're when you're starting to drive, you're learning to drive, right? You get in the car that very first time. What do? You look at everything in that
Okay.
dashboard. You look at, your the different equipment, your screen, and you're trying to study everything, right? You're not even thinking about the road. You're not even thinking about the destination or where you're going, or the map, right?
Right.
Over time, what happens when you're learning to drive? You've got the lesson, you know how to drive, then you start learning about the next step and the next step and the next step. And over time, when you're driving, everything is automated. You get in your car and you're going to that grocery store. Do you even have to think where that grocery store is, or do you automatically go there while your brain is thinking about something else?
Yes,
Right?
absolutely right.
And you don't get to that point just naturally. You get to that point with practice, with intentionality, and that tells you that everything in life, when you have intentionality, when you're focusing on learning it, you can actually do it, because there is patterns to everything in our life, and it is possible to actually train your brain to look for that lesson that we're going to actually take from that adversity we're going through at that point in time in our life.
I love that intentional action. I love that. So that reminded me that yesterday I went with my sister to a town a couple hours from here. I was taking her to the airport, and there's a place that we like to go for breakfast. And we were chatting, and I turned to go there, and I'm like, what the heck? Did we pass it? I know it's on this block. And I look back and I'm like, I'm on the wrong road. It's over one street, but I knew because I've driven it so many times, but I also immediately realized that I was off course a little bit. And so
Yeah.
I think our intentional actions help us to quickly have a response to get us back on course for the
Yes.
positivity, which we need.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I love that you said this. The one thing that I've discovered, and I want to tell you a short story about what got me to, to this place and why I'm talking about resilience. The way we're wired again, it goes back to the caves, right? When you've got threats everywhere and you have to actually look out for threats because you want to keep yourself safe, right?
Right.
What happens nowadays in our modern world, when we do focus on threats, we get really tired and exhausted, and it doesn't really serve us well. So that's why we have to also kind of think about, okay, these are the threats. What can I do to get out of it? What can I do to learn from it? And it took me a long time to really realize that this is how we're wired, and this is how we are, but we can actually get out of it. I was born in Iraq, and my family left Iraq in 1990 when there was a lot of political, unrest going on. There was a rebellion against Saddam's regime at that time, and my family was one of the people that actually participated, and so we had to leave. It was getting really dangerous, and we left. We got into the truck in our truck, and we basically ended up driving from city to city in Iraq. And every time we got to a city and it was peaceful, not a couple hours later, the army would get to where we are and violence erupts again and we have to leave again. And it was kind of like that pretty much the entire way out of Iraq until we got to the southernmost part of Iraq. And we basically, before finding out that while we're leaving to the south, other trucks coming from the south were telling us it was dangerous where we're going to, and we're like, okay, we're stuck. Where are we going? At 8 years old, it wasn't something all we could do is pray, wish, and just hope that we're alive the next day. And we were welcomed by the American soldiers who were stationed in the southernmost part, and they actually took us over to a makeshift camp. But the story of this, which is a very long story that I wanted to kind of bring to light to why I talk about resilience, is that as an adult now, I go back in my memory and I reflect on these challenges we went through. And um, as an 8-year-old, all I can think about is that fear I felt, is that violence that was taking place during that time, is running for our life. But now, as an adult, when I go back in my memories and I think, I remember the people that took us in. I remembered the people who were helping us escape. I remembered the soldiers whose job was to kill us, but instead they were letting us go. and they were facing their own death and basically, right? And I remember us settling in even for a few hours. But all of this is signs, these are signs of hope. These are signs
Right.
of getting, getting that light, little lights in the middle of everything that we were going through. And there it's really hard to see this unless you actually spend time reflecting. When was the last time you reflected on a situation you've been through?
Yeah, I think that I want to touch first on, you said it's exhausting, the fight or flight it really is so exhausting. And so I find that for me, um, when I'm in those situations, if I can think or say a little prayer, or however we want to say that, um, and try to find the reasoning, the light at the end of the tunnel, find even if it's to benefit somebody else.
Hmm.
But sometimes you find yourself in such a harrowing situation that um, you really have to focus on even just the littlest of good things when you're reflecting,
Yeah.
you know, and it can be just the most minute thing in that
Hmm.
situation. But when you focus on the light becomes brighter.
Yes.
Seldom do you focus on a light and it becomes dimmer. Very seldom in life. And so um, when the light's becoming brighter, it spreads to your attitude, to your heart, to your persona, to what
Yeah.
you're putting out into the world also. And so I I didn't used to reflect. I've been much more reflective in the past 5 years. We've had some very traumatic events, since COVID in our life. I've lost my mother, who was my last living relative, besides my children and husband. And then like the last one I grew up with in my family, right? And then I
Mhm.
sold my businesses to take care of her, and then those were gone, and then my kids moved out, and COVID happened, and just so many things. And then, of course, let's throw in the hormones and all of the menopause and all of that on top of it. And so just so many things, it seems like just one thing after another, that I really have realized, number one, these situations I have no control over.
Mhm.
And so there's a big release that goes with that. And in releasing, it gives me the opportunity to reflect and then to say, okay, so if I can't control this, what can I control?
Yeah.
How can I find something to focus on,
Yeah.
that's going to be my light to get me through this? And then even afterwards, being able to look back. And a lot of mine, I do too, a lot of journaling and a lot of writing. And some of it, I just write until I feel better. And so maybe it's not in a certain format, or it doesn't begin and end in the same way. It's just writing it down and putting it out that way, because then when I read it, I can be like, that's not right, or that's not true, or I need to look at it
Hmm.
different. You know what I mean? So for me,
Yeah, I
that's
love
where
that.
it is. But I've certainly learned to reflect a lot more in the last 5 years, which in my life, and it's not been 5 years. It actually has been 5 years. I was thinking 4.5. It actually, I'm looking at the calendar. It has been 5 years. And if I were to look at my life, and gone through, just like any other person who's made it this far in life, I've gone through a lot of hard things in life, but the last five
Mhm.
years have just been a cluster of the hardest things for me.
Yeah.
And so I've had to find a way to reflect and back up and let go of trying to be in control of how that's working, because it just didn't work anymore.
I love it. And you have certainly got it. Reflection is one. Focusing on what is in your control is two. Focusing on that light makes it brighter 100% because this is how our brains are wired. When you start looking for the negative, guess what you'll find?
Yeah, the negative for
Negative.
sure. Every
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Every
But
time.
the opposite is 100% true. You focus on the positive, that's what you're going to see. And I'm not talking about the toxic positive where you just keep smiling regardless of what you're going through. No, be human. Feel what you have to feel. Get your emotions in place. And I love that you're writing this out. This is what I tell people and teach people. When you've got an emotion, speak it. A lot of people prefer writing, which is great, but I want you to hear your voice. I want you to actually hear yourself saying these things because they're going to feel so different when they're not just in your brain. Um, and you actually hear them because they're going to feel like someone else is talking to you.
It feels like a validation of sorts.
Well, yes and no. It could be a validation, or it could feel very ridiculous when you
Oh,
actually say it out loud. And
maybe.
it,
But
yeah,
maybe it is okay, so when I say, if I were to say out loud, I am incredibly angry about this, then that gives me the point of, that almost takes it from me and puts it here, if you will. And then
mhm,
I can look at it and say, okay, well, that's just silly.
yeah, exactly.
Or I can say, okay, she's angry, and how do we deal with the anger? Or how
Yes.
do we go from there?
Yes,
But it
yes, yes,
puts it in a,
absolutely. Perspective.
yes, in
Yeah, it puts
perspective.
it in a different perspective. It puts it, it brings it out of you and this, because we have a very complex mind where we tend to, everything gets, overwhelmingly mixed with all other thoughts and emotions. And if we take it outside, you're just taking that one thought outside, and you're absolutely right. If you're angry, you say you're angry, but then the next thing you say is, why? Why are you angry? And then ask yourself that question, and then you'll start to think aloud about making sense of your actual emotions that are just inside. Now they're on the outside. Then you're going to start to think more rationally. You're going to take out the stuff from your amygdala, the fear area of your brain, and out into the rational stage where you can actually think about what's in your control and what's not. But this has helped me so much over the years to actually make better decisions. And let's talk about this. Let's do this, because this is how you start thinking more rationally and become more self-aware, is because when you learn about your own personality type, you start becoming more aware of why you behave the way you do, why you communicate the way you do, why do others communicate with you that way, because you're going to start to see patterns in their behavior and yours at the same time. So let's do this. I don't want to share my screen or anything just yet. I want to ask you
Okay.
this. um let's say, and I want to try to figure out your personality too, Colleen. uh
Okay.
um let's say you're in an elevator, or about to get onto an elevator. Okay, and you're push the button and you're just waiting for it to come down or up or whatever, waiting for the door to open. How do you usually feel when you get into the elevator and there's another person in there? What do you do in that case? Do you talk to the person? Do you?
I think if it depends, for me, it depends on the number of people. So if it's one or two, first of all, I look and see. If it were a couple of men or people I wouldn't be comfortable with, I wouldn't get on. But if it's one or two, like a male female couple, or maybe even three people, then I would get on and I would greet them as I get on.
Okay.
But if it was a lot of people, I would probably wait for the next
Okay,
elevator.
okay. How about when you're, and I'll tell you why I asked this question, and I'll tell you about the different personality types. What about if you're, let's say you're planning a trip? What do you usually do? What are the things you do before the trip, and what do you do during your trip?
I make sure that wherever I'm leaving, everything is in order, so that when I come home, I don't have the weight of things that need done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then when I leave, like, and I do that actually, my husband and I talk about this, because when we leave so that we don't work. And we are good at shutting everything off when we leave. We just go. We relax, just enjoy what we're doing.
Good for you. That's awesome. Do you make plans on, do you
No,
actually create
we
your itinerary before?
nope,
No?
we don't.
Okay.
We've never been one to make our itinerary before. Now, not a daily itinerary. Now, we will book a place to stay, like an Airbnb or a
Uh-huh.
VRBO, something like that, in advance. Uh, However, we have about 8 spots in the United States that we like to go, and we go to the same houses every time. But we don't necessarily plan our days out when we're there. We just relax and do whatever comes up.
Awesome. Good for you. Good for you. Spontaneity. I love it. Okay. So the reason why I asked is this, and let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so this is the elevator, and this is what usually happens. People, pushing the button and they're waiting on to get on to the elevator. Here's what some people do. They get into the elevator, they find other people, and they immediately get engaged in conversation. Hey, how you doing? How's your day? Where are you going? Which button should I push? Right? This is one type of personality. And then there is the other type that goes in the, waits for the door to open and they're afraid they're going to find another person in there because they don't want to talk, or they get in, they find the other person and they keep their head down or looking at that arrow or that number changing, just waiting for the door to open again so they can leave. And you've got the outgoing personality or the reserved personality. These are the two different types. The trip, you've got also two different types of personalities. You've got the people who have checklist over checklist over checklist of things, not just what to take with them, but also what things to make sure are good in their home before leaving, so that when they come back, they don't have to worry about bills or, did I unplug that one thing that I always forget to do. That's the type of people who are more task oriented. And then you've got the other type of people who are more people oriented, who all they can think about is where are they going to go, who are they going to meet, how much fun they're going to have. And these are your people oriented people. Okay. And so this is how we're classified. And by all means, we're not all in, one personality type. Some of us have multiple, and we have, a combination, and which makes it really fun. So you've got the D, which is the dominant personality type, the I's that are influential, the S who are steady, and the C's who are compliant. Your outgoing types are your dominant and influencing, and then your reserved are your steady and compliance. And then I'm getting from you, you're more of a C or an I, but let's see. And then your C's and D's are more task oriented. They focus on the to-do list, and your I's and S's are more the people oriented. So let's talk a little bit about each of them, so you kind of get an idea of what they are. 3% only of the population are your D's, and these are the people who are the dominant. They're the ones that like the control. If you ever have a friend who, let's say you both agree on going out to lunch, and they, you're ready to go to get in the car, they insist on driving even if it's your own car because they like the control. These are the decisive type. They're very direct, they're very bold, and they focus on the results. They don't like much of the details. And your I's are these are the spotlight liking people. They're very friendly. People love having I's because they're very social, and they're friendly and they're talkative. They love talking to other people. So they don't mind getting in the elevator with other people because then that gives them a chance to actually talk. The majority of the population are the S types. And these are your team-oriented people. They love working with other people. They're very harmonious and accepting of other people, and they're very loyal. Every one of these personality, though, has its own challenge, has its own obstacles, but at the same time, they have a lot of strengths. And this is why learning about each of these personalities and learning where you are is really helpful in discovering these patterns you go through. And this is the last one. We just got joined by Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
She's telling me what personality I am. This will be fun.
All right. So our last personality is the C personality. And these are your analytical people. They're the ones that focus on the data, the facts. They love being accurate, and they love planning things out. So that, example I asked you about, that question I asked you about, if you're planning a trip, what do? Your C-type people, they like to plan ahead of time. They like to have their to-do lists ready before they go. So let me pose this question to you so far. based on what you know, Colleen, which personality resonates with you the most? Even if you feel like, you know what, I'm a little bit of this, I'm a little bit of that. Think about the one that resonates with you the most. Is it your D, your I, your S, or your C personality?
Go back to I. Let me look at that for a second. And then S and C. I think I
Okay.
feel like but then I also feel like I am task oriented when I need to be and can get the task done and apply myself. What was, the next one is S. Let's see about
So
this.
you're more, to me, you're more of an S, but you have the I in you.
Okay.
I feel like you may be a high S. And you
I
could be
like to work, I don't want to say I like to work alone. That's not correct. I like to rely on myself alone. I like to work with others, but rely on myself for the outcome.
yeah, yeah. And that doesn't mean that you can't be an S. You could be an S. S's don't mind working alone. They don't mind working with people either. They're very organized as well, and they are task oriented. But it looks also, it sounds like you have an I in you
Yes,
as well, where you're, you like having people around, you like working with others as well.
I do.
Okay. All right. And Leslie, we're going to go through some more of this and you can do the same thing. You can kind of think about where you are. Every personality has its own strengths, has motivations, has obstacles, and also has a blind side that only people see, but we don't see about ourselves. So these are your D's. They love their results. They're self-driven. They're high-powered people who they love loyalty, and they don't mind change. They actually, in fact, they're the ones that bring change about.
This is so funny because that's what my kids say I am.
Okay.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but
Well, here's the thing. This is what I tell people. There is no better personality than another. This is who you are, and we learn about these personalities to see, okay, what's taking over here, and what do I need to work on? Really, that's the point. The point is you want to make sure that you are making sure you're using your strengths to their fullest potential, and you have strengths in every personality. So these are the strengths of the D. They're confident, they're decisive, they're very productive, very strong-willed, very persistent and independent. They don't need anyone. And that could also be some of these things that you see as strengths. They could be obstacles because people see decisive and confident people as very bold, harsh,
harsh,
crass,
rash.
right?
Yes, I've
Yes.
heard those things from my kids. And I've really worked on not being so persistent and not being argumentative. Um, I've always been complimentary. I've never been possessive. I always apologize, but I'm also the first to stand up and bop somebody in the nose if they need it, right? I will. My granddaughter called and she's like, "These kids at school." I'm like, "Who do I need to bop?" And she's like, "Grammy, you're in Missouri. I'm in Utah." I'm like, "I will jump through the phone and bop them in the nose." But I find that way too, that I am a protector of the ones of the underdog. I've always been the protector of the underdog too. And so I'm not just that way for me.
Yeah.
I'm probably not that way for me much at all, as much as I am for other people.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you heard yourself, Colleen, you're going through these obstacles and you're saying, I try to work on this, I try to work on that. I think you get it. You get the whole point of learning about your personality is that you actually figure it out and then you start working on the ones that are the things that are negative, you try to get rid of, the things that are good, you try to strengthen. And that's the whole point of learning about your personality. It's not to label you.
It's been interesting to, as I work on things in myself, and a lot of this comes with age, because, when you're younger, you're going through life so fast, you're just trying to survive. You're really just trying to
Yeah.
survive. And so once you get to a point where you realize that you need to just let go and enjoy life, when I see other people, I try to figure out why they are this way, that way, or the other, and how I can help them to
Yeah,
be
absolutely.
better,
And
be
then
softer,
honestly, I think we
bring
should
out
all
the better in them.
we should start learning about our own, strengths and areas of improvement and obstacles at a younger age, because I mean, I remembered when I was younger, I struggled too. I didn't know, how to work with people. I didn't know why they weren't understanding me. I didn't know why I thought I didn't have the confidence. There's so many different things, so many different questions that we don't have answers to. All right, here are your eyes. They're the relationship oriented people, the friendly people. They love the spotlight. They absolutely adore and encourage experience. They can be very persuasive and generous, charismatic. The problem is they don't actually follow through with things because most of their time is spent with other people. They enjoy the social side more, and so they end up wasting a lot of time. And they need a system to keep them on track. They can be disorganized, and they can seem undependable because of that very nature of them liking more of the social aspect versus the task at hand that they have to work on. So with a specific system, they can actually work very well.
Yeah, I would say I'm probably not. I'm very disciplined and very dependable and very organized.
Leslie, do you see yourself either as a deer or eye so far, or are you waiting to see the other ones?
I probably need to wait, right? Because I think we all have bits and parts of each other, but like I can totally relate to this one other than, but maybe undisciplined, undependable, disorganized, but I recognize that about myself. So I have a system. So like that part doesn't as much apply at the moment.
Mhm.
But yeah, the other does, right? So
Yeah, gotcha. Awesome. So you're already on your way. Wonderful. Here are your assets. So they're very loyal. People love having them in their organizations because these are your dependable people. You can rely on them. You can go to them for things. They love working in the team. They're the harmonious type. They actually bring the team together. But they don't like facing conflict. They don't like confronting conflict head on. They don't like change. They will need a very long time to accept if there is a change within their immediate system. They can be sarcastic. They can be too laid back too, because of their innate nature to focus on people. They can seem like they are, and they have a very difficult time saying no. They like to please other people, so they can't say no, and unfortunately end up taking on too much. And then finally, last but not least, your C types, your compliant type, who love their data, they love their accuracy. They are very analytical. These are the people you want to have on your team. If you don't, if you don't want to go through all these little details, because they actually come to life when there is analysis to be done. Those little facts. They're very logical and persistent, but because of that, they could take a very long time to accomplish something because they want to make sure it is perfect. And because perfection doesn't exist, it can take them a long time to overthink and overanalyze. And it's very hard for them to actually come up with a decision because they think that they need all the facts. And by the time you have all the facts and collect all this data, you spend a very long time. So they can be very critical, and because of their love for data and facts and perfection, they're not very people oriented. They focus on the task, and they can seem like they're rigid. They're not easily approachable because they haven't developed much of the social skills because they don't spend enough time with others. They spend most of their time doing what they love doing. Okay, now we've got them all. What do you guys think?
I just think I'm a mix-up of them. I think with the D's, I was thinking when we were talking about that, are you familiar with who Zig Ziglar is?
Hmm.
Okay, and so I was adopted as a small child, and one of the things, the very best things that my parents could have done for us probably was from the time, so I was adopted when I was 18 months old. Um, and by the time I was 7 probably. So we were still in the process of adopting more kids in our family, but they started us in the Zig Ziglar program. Um, and so I never felt like there was anything that I couldn't do. Like we did these Zig Ziglar lessons every day, and we did the Up with People programs, and we participated in all of these um, building activities and things to really help us because I was the youngest child that was adopted. Everybody else was over 4. And so they've already missed so much of the things that are important in life, you know, from going from foster home to foster home and things like that. And so they really were just missing the foundational things in life. And so that really helped us. I mean, I don't think it replaced it, but it certainly helped us. But it also brought out that strong I can do personality, you know?
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I grew up watching my parents basically going through from one tough time to another, but making it through and very creatively. And I learned from watching them. And my dad used he fixed from like teeny tiny things to really large things. He used to work as a maintenance person on a ship, and he would fix, engine breaks down, that he's the go-to person. And when he retired, he opened up a small shop, and he fixes small things, and he started creating little things in our house. He made ovens, electric ovens, and I mean, it was amazing watching him work. And he fixed car engines, and when he did that, he made sure everyone in the house comes to watch, because his motto was, "You never know when things break down on your own, and you're responsible for yourself. I'm not going to be there to help you anymore." So, watching both of them work, and my mom did her own thing too. She made power went out. She started making clay ovens, and she used to crochet and knit, and she made clothes and wedding dresses and everything. And it's just she was just amazing. They were both a powerhouse. And when I saw that, I didn't think there was anything I couldn't do, because when I watched them work, and especially my dad, he would just sit there and look at that thing that he needs to work on and just come up with something. And there's always a way. To him, it was
Right.
always an answer, and it was so wonderful watching him. Now, I'll tell you this: I'm reflecting on this as an adult, but as a child, I, he was wrong, I was right all the time, right? I mean, that's the
Sure.
attitude we all grow up with. Um, but I kind of adapted that attitude from both of my parents, that I thought I could do anything I want. Of course, life knocks you down, and then you end up here in America having to learn the language from zero and start all over again, building that confidence, rebuilding that confidence up from ground zero. But that took a long time to get there, but it's still reflected in my personality after a while. But you're absolutely right. I think your upbringing, and that's where, this, because it can be um the 4 personality types you actually build up from having role models in your life, from your environment that you grow up in, from your whatever your immediate surrounding is. And it can be hereditary, so whatever you inherit from your biological parents. So let's say your environment changes. Does that mean your personality changes? Yes, it actually does, because what you end up doing is you adapt to the new environment's needs. And so I'm curious about Leslie now. She's just kind of,
Yes.
taking some notes down. I want to see, what do you think? Where are you on these, and which combo do you think you are?
Um, well, definitely, probably least the C, right? And the S, I think I have S tendencies, but I will tell you, they can be too laid back. I remember years ago, I just had this conversation recently. I said to friends something about not being a type A personality. And they laughed hysterically. I mean, they laughed until they cried. And honestly, I was a little bit hurt. And somebody recently, I was doing a presentation, he said, "You seem like you're not a type A, that you're really laid back. And I'm wondering about," and I said, "Oh, I love you," because that's what I want to personify, right? But I'm totally not type B, sadly. I'd like to be. But anyway, so whenever I see that, I'm like, yeah, I gotta recognize that about me. But on the other hand, a team player, um, definitely, and loyalty is huge with me. So yeah, some combination, I guess, of the other
Mhm.
three.
And I think loyalty especially is one of those things that can change with what we've gone through in life. You know, there are some people that have always had loyalty and so they don't value it, right? And there are other people who have a higher value on it because they've been hurt so badly, or they've seen other people they love hurt so badly. And so they know what is acceptable and what isn't to them when it comes to loyalty.
Yeah, you're
Right?
absolutely right.
And I think, yeah, I think, team player, that has some interesting connotations too. When you brought up loyalty, because I'm always fascinated by team player and how that means so many different things to so many different people. Um, yeah, yeah, like we could go, yeah, all sorts of down a rabbit
You
hole,
know
right? But
what? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because here's the thing. You hear this a lot in organizations, be a team player or be on the team. And team could mean a lot of different things. And we're not a team just because we work together.
right,
That's just not how it works. You want us to be a team, you make us into a team, right? You build that foundational structure of a team where we actually feel supported and we feel like we belong. And that's when naturally you're going to feel like a team player. But you're absolutely right about that. But here's the thing though. I took this assessment first, gosh, 5 years ago, I think, and it was part of my doctoral program, and I took it and I was completely shocked. I thought I was an S. I thought I was an S or a C, and it turns out I was an ICD. I was a high I, okay, with a high C, and there's a D in there, okay, which C was not a surprise to me because I overthink. I'm really analytical. I am really organized. Um, but the I was a surprise. Oh, really? I'm people oriented. I didn't know that. I was very shy, and having to, learn the English language kind of kept me, in like that little bubble because I don't want to say anything and have people laugh at me or think that I said it wrong or whatever. I was very careful. That C was keeping me really, housed in. So when I learned that about myself, I was a school principal at that time, and I needed those skills. I needed to have each of these in there, but the C was keeping me from making decisions. When you're a school principal, you've got to be doing things on a whim. You've got to run with things. You got to go with the flow because you've got a very unpredictable situation. You can never know what or see what's going to happen. And the C could, kind of kept me from doing that. So when I learned that about myself, I started working on my over analytical type of personality and my, love of data and overthinking things and just taking a really long time. And I gave space for that D to shine because I wanted to be, more decisive. I wanted to actually, I was a leader. People are looking up to me. I needed to be that leader. So over time, I actually started working on myself and I took the assessment 2 years ago. And guess what? ID. The C is still there, but it's very on the low side now. My two personalities that shine and they're very prominent are the I and the D now. And it's because I worked on it, and then this is possible. And the reason why we find this out is because we want to work on ourselves. We want to actually, bring out the strengths and develop them versus I'm not trying to find out what my weaknesses are because that's all I'm going to think about, right? I want to find my strengths and I want to develop them even more. and use them to my advantage and other people's advantage who I'm leading. And so, really, that's the whole point. And yes, your personality could change based on your environment. Your personality could change based on where you are, what you're doing at the time, how you're leading, and who you're leading. I see
I love
some
that.
thinking. Colleen, tell me what you're
Well,
thinking.
I love that because I feel like, and this is just my opinion, is that when we quit working on those things, or when we decide, and I say decide because I think it's a conscious decision that we make to no longer care or to be oblivious to the things, then we become stagnant, and stagnancy kills. It kills
Yeah.
your spirit, it kills your personality, it kills your progress, it kills your desire to do better. It just isn't good. And so I think, and I know that I've been told by my children that always wanting to improve and always setting goals that are just a little bit ahead and always picking areas to improve in or to focus on, it drives them crazy. But I think that that is how we get to be a well-rounded person, but also it just keeps us alive and going and developing. And the same way that you can learn woodworking and you can learn plumbing, you can learn to do hair and nails, and you can learn scrapbooking. It's just more of the same kind of thing like that. Like the more you know, the more well-rounded you are. And so why would you not take the things that you're good at and work at them and exemplify them so that they can also help other people? You know, like you said, why would you focus on the things that are bad? Clearly, you need to know that, yes, that's not a good thing. And so I'm going to try to stay away from that, or I'm going to try to handle that in a different manner, or however that is, so that you're not coming across as rigid, or you're not appearing distant and cold, or things like that. Right.
Yes.
But you want to put the things that you're really good at, put them up where they can shine so they can be a light for everybody.
100%. Very well said. And that's with us, the way we're wired, all our brains are wired is once you find a weakness or something you're not good at, it's only going to bring you down. Because we tend to overthink. We tend to start thinking, okay, I'm not good at this. Oh my God, did I do this because, oh, what are other people thinking about? Or, oh, this is why and it just gets super overwhelming and it weighs us down and it keeps us from focusing on the important things. Yes, there's some things we're not good at, but look at all the great things that we could do. And they're not done getting good or becoming better. There is no ceiling to learning. There's no ceiling to improvement. There's always something else, something better that comes along that you can actually do and improve yourself. And I mean, this group this is an example, a shining example of that, right? The midlife women's group, doesn't matter what age you're in or what, stage of your life you are, there's always something that you can improve on. There's something that you can actually spotlight that can help you, but not just you, right? Because we're a community. We learn from each other. And this is why I love sharing stories with others because, a lot of us have some similarities in the stories that we've lived through and that we can learn from each other.
And so I was raised with a saying that you are what you eat. And so I know you guys are about the same age. You probably heard that before. You are what you eat. And so you also are who you hang out with. And so one thing that's helped me is to look at the things like, if I don't want to appear, I'm just looking at your list you have up now. If I don't want to appear cold and distant, if I don't want to appear rigid, then I'm going to find people who are really good at the opposite of that. And I'm going to intermix with them because I am what I eat and I am who I hang out with. And so if, let's say, I'm a poor public speaker, then it would really behoove me to have conversations with people who are great public speakers, because that's going to rub off in my world and on me. And that's going to help me without me saying I'm a poor public speaker. Right. And so I can still be excelling at the things that I'm not necessarily good at, or that I'm even bad at. I can still get better at those things if I put those people in my network or in my circle of friends that I rub shoulders with, even if it's just making it a point to communicate with them or to be around them, if it's not somebody I interact with daily, even then.
You got it. You got it. There is actual research that says if you are in close proximity of successful people, smart people, or, let's say, like you said, people who are great public speakers, you actually start developing some of these skills just being in close proximity to them. And
Yes.
the opposite is true. If you are in close proximity of people who are wallowers, who are whiners, who are complainers, who are, are just constantly think negatively, they're gonna rub off on you. And this is how office gossip works, right? If you're if you're in an office space, you go into the break room, the lunchroom, whatever, and all people do is sit there and complain, even if you're not a complainer. Over
Yep.
time, they're going to affect you in a negative way because it's just that's the space you're in.
That's
That's
true.
what
And this
you're
is why we
confined to.
sit, this is why we sit at tables where they talk about ideas and goals instead of people.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love that. We need to
It's
sign that.
okay. You know, it took me a long time in life to realize that it's okay to get up and push your chair in and say, I'm at the wrong table.
Yeah.
Switch tables, you know, you can just
Yeah.
do that.
And you can make that choice. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And now I'm coming into a point where I'm like, and you know what? If there's not a table there for you, create one, invite some people to
Yes.
create your table. And I tell people all the time, they're like, well, I was invited to go do this thing, but everybody's weird. And I'm like, okay, then go create your own.
Yeah.
And invite people into that world, you know? There's no reason to not have it be successful and positive and uplifting in your own way. You just need to create it.
100%. If, at some point in time, someone created that thing you're a part of right now, which means it can be made, can be done. You can be the one to create it. Why
Absolutely.
not? And I love that. And I'm in the same space you are. If no one is welcoming me in their thing, I'm making my own. I'm not going to wait for somebody to do it for me. I love that.
Absolutely. And I know Leslie's the kind of girl that does that too. She does it. And I love that. I love that we have that option now. I don't know if you've seen a shift, you know, but it seems like when I was in my 20s and 30s and building businesses, that it was all about competition. And it was like, oh, yeah, but they have a scrapbook store. You're going to open a scrapbook store. Don't, they're doing that. Don't do that. And now it's like, hey, ladies, let's do this. And you know what? I speak different than you. And so other people are going to be attracted to you. Let's all do this and let's uplift each other. And I just love that part of being midlife, you know? Just
Oh, I
really
love
being
that.
able to rise together and understand the differences and embrace them and be good with them.
Yeah, I the collaboration factor. I don't know. Maybe we become wiser at this age.
Or maybe we realize that we don't know it all. We really need to collaborate so we can
Yes.
learn more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's
Definitely.
this energy, the physical energy that we feel when we're in our 20s that pushes us to compete more than collaborate. I think that's what it is.
Maybe that's it. And that's like,
I don't know. I'm just making that up right now.
but I think that, you know, we obviously we all do better when we help each other get further along. And I've seen my business, all of my businesses that I had brick and mortar businesses and my online business, I have seen it just grow and expand when I collaborate, when I network, when I reach out and help and lift others. That's when the difference is made.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. I do love that. And there's I can't remember who said this quote. Uh, compete with yourself, collaborate with others.
Yes.
And when you
Oh, I
compete with
love that.
yourself, what you're doing is you're measuring yourself from today against the yourself from yesterday. And you're kind of looking back and how much have you grown? And then the yourself from tomorrow and how much are you going to grow? So that's your competition factor right there. But what you're doing is the collaboration is with others, is you're working with others, and like you said, learn from each other because we each bring a unique set of, potential to the
Yeah.
table, and it works best when we actually learn from each other.
And just even our experiences and the way we were raised and just all of it. I had somebody say to me, I invited them to Thanksgiving, and I was in my 20s then. And I invited some people to Thanksgiving, and I was like, well, are you going to be there? And they're like, well, yeah, we always go to Thanksgiving at your house. It's like a melting pot. You never know who's going to be there. You can have anybody from homeless people to grandma you met on, you know, at the grocery store. Anybody in the world could be at your house for Thanksgiving. We're absolutely coming for the show, you know? And I just love that. I love to involve everybody and let everybody have the chance to shine and just bring their best self. It just makes life so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And this is, I think this is exact opposite from what we were taught, what we were taught by example in school, where you had all the kids that dressed this way hung out together, all the ones that played this sport did, all the ones that did this did. And now we're like, no, 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 wait, I'm missing a little bit of orange. Come in over here. And you know what? I need somebody that's a little bit quieter. You come in over here, and just build
Yeah.
it up together. And what a great community we have then.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. I used to be, before becoming a school principal, I used to be a classroom teacher, and I struggled through that. I became a teacher because I wanted to teach differently. I wanted to, because I had my very, very difficult experience being a student, and I wanted to share a different, way of teaching. And it was met by a lot of resistance by administration, because I wanted to teach, I wanted to teach the students that were in my classroom that year, and not the books. The books don't know what my students bring to the table. And so it was very difficult
That's
teaching
so
and
interesting.
staying, persistent with that way when everybody said you're doing it wrong. You're not following the same pace as your other, the other teachers in the grade level. But they have different kids. They don't
Yes.
have my
Yeah.
kids. How
And
how
that
do
is,
you know?
yes, that is why I homeschooled my kids, and we did interest-led homeschooling. And so whatever my kids were interested in
Awesome.
is where we went with their education.
I love that.
And they all did well. They're all really good people and very smart. And we never had the
Yeah.
competition I see with my grandkids. And I was like, well, my kid's reading and writing by 5. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. We just
Yeah.
let them do their thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And what are they? I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what, honestly, as a mother, I'll tell you, I have two kids, and I've never cared about what grades they get. I wanted to make sure they could read and write. Okay. Wanted to make sure they could socialize. They are able to connect with other people. I
Yeah.
didn't want them to be isolated. I wanted to make sure that they are confident, with whatever it is that they do. And I wanted to make sure that they find out whatever they're good at so they
Yes.
can
I
pursue that in
wanted my
life.
kids to know how to learn.
Yes.
And
Yes.
whatever that meant for them. So I have a son who has a degenerative nerve and muscle disease in his eyes. And so he would build his name long before he could write his name. And when society stepped in and said he needs a dictation machine, he's never going to be able to write. I said, writing's a life skill. He's going to have to sign documents. He's not going to walk into the bank and say, do you have a dictation machine? He's going to need to write. So he's going to learn to write at his own pace. And we'll do this. But just allowing them to say, oh, I want to learn about this, and then let them go do it. Let them experiment with it. Stand by and say, well, how did that work? What did you learn? What
Yes.
would you do
Yes.
different?
I
And come
love
back
it.
and study on that. I want them to love learning and love reading and love themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they can do anything they want in the world.
Yes, absolutely. You could have been a teacher, Colleen.
Well, I homeschooled 4, and I'm homeschooling my little grandson said to me the other day, Cram, I love reading at your house, but your books is so old. And I said, I know, I taught your mom with these books. Your mom is 28. So yes, they're so old. There's no anime in my books. We're reading Dick and Jane. And then the little bug books where you go find things. Thank you, Leslie. I think we will be wrapping it up. I appreciate you dropping in.
Thank you for the lovely conversation on Monday. Take
Always. You have
care.
a good week. Well, that wraps it up for us. Nagham, I really appreciate this. This was so enlightening, and I feel like I just loved it. I can't
Awesome.
wait to post the replay and share it with a few people. I'm going to send it to a few people.
Yeah, and you know what I'll do when you do this? I'm going to share a free disc assessment that you can take and others can take to learn more about, which style you resonate with the most, and start building those strengths, building
Good.
that self-awareness and learning more
And
about yourself.
if when you share that, you make sure that it's going to be evergreen, because I will put this video in my paid membership group also. And so for years down the road, they'll be able to access it and reach out to you. So make sure you have your contact information. That's going to be your evergreen contact information.
Yes, absolutely. I enjoyed having being here, and thank you so much for having me.